everyone, welcome to another round of Chitter Chatter. Today we're going to chit chat with the author Niraj Srivastava. Well, he is known as a lost Mughal and he has written a chronicles of the Mughal history. Right now we're going to talk about his current book, the author of the Jhelum Betrayal. He is also the Royal Member of the Royal Society of Literature in England. So let's welcome him and let's get started with this Chitter Chatter. Welcome
Better?
to Chitter Chatter.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Shweta ji.
एंड वी आर वेरी प्रिविलेज कि आज आप हमारे साथ यहाँ पे हमारे साथ लॉट अबाउट हिस्ट्री बात करने वाले आई हैव अ लॉट ऑफ क्वेश्चंस एंड आई होप यू आर रेडी फॉर ऑल ऑफ इट
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely.
सो
And I'm so happy that I have this opportunity to be on podcast with you. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका.
सो द प्लेजर इज ऑल आवर्स मुझे आपसे पूछना है सम पीपल इनहेरिट प्रॉपर्टी सम पीपल इनहेरिट नेम्स एंड सम इनहेरिट हिस्ट्री you are one of those rare people who has not just studied the past but carries it. What is your take on it?
Ma'am, actually, I am basically a management scholar. I did my PhD in marketing. But if I get to the whole frame of it, I fell sick in 2011. I was suspected of lung cancer, and I had a very thriving business of security service, which I had to wind down because of the complexities and my own medical problems. So I was advised bed rest, and I was getting irritated at home, not doing any work. Then my wife, Smita, she is here with me just now. So she was the one who said that you write well, and the only testimony was the left love letters which I had written to her before our marriage. So she said, "You write well, why don't you start writing stories?" So that is how it started. I wrote my first collection of short stories, A Ship of Many Oars, and it was published by Penguin. Then I come from a small town, from Allahabad, now known as Prayagraj, but it's Allahabad for us. So there, everybody said, "Arey Neeraj to kahaniyan likhta hai," because it was short stories. So that somehow I told her one day we were having tea in the morning, and this is all factual, ma'am. I told her कि स्मिता मन नहीं लग रहा है लोग कह रहे हैं कि हम कहानी लिखते हैं so let me write a full-fledged novel. And just over that those 15 minutes of discussion with Smita, I said, let me write on Khurram Shah Jahan. Khurram was not known to me then. I just knew him as Shah Jahan. So I said, I'll write on Shah Jahan and I'll give it a take कि सब लोग कहते हैं शाहजहां जो है वो ताजमहल देखते देखते मर गए. That his last, things were he was watching the Taj Mahal and he passed away. But I don't think that he was such a weak emperor that he would just die looking at the Taj Mahal. I'll give it a twist. And that is how this story started. It was supposed to be a one book novel. But when I started researching, ma'am, on the Mughals, it has grown into 4 volumes now.
We have to first thank Smita ma'am, and correctly you've dedicated the book to her. Like the first book
Yes.
also starts as a dedication to her because thanks to us we get to hear and read so much about the Mughal history. So firstly, thanks to her, and second, sir, like you said, आपने शुरू किया with the thought of writing one. And then there was so much. Like The Curse of Mughals became a four-part series. This itself is a significant literary ambition. How did you conceive a multi book saga on the Mughal world after your 15-minute discussion with Smitaji?
Um, Ma'am, because I was not a history scholar, my only history was till the class 10th. And then when I got into history and I started researching, then the closest fort, the closest Mughal fort to Allahabad, apart from the Allahabad का किला जो अकबर ने बनवाया था, the closest fort was at Chunar. And Chunar is very close to Banaras, about 30 kilometers from there and about 120 from Allahabad. So so I again going back to the original framework when we were discussing that day, I said कि हम start ऐसे करेंगे कि हम एक हिस्ट्री के स्कॉलर हैं फ्रॉम इलाहाबाद यूनिवर्सिटी एंड आई एम डूइंग रिसर्च ऑन द 1857 म्यूटिनी. तो हम एक सिमेट्री में जाते हैं, कब्रगाह में, और वहां पे हमको सब कब्र एक जैसी मिलती हैं एक्सेप्ट वन विच इज वेरी डिफरेंट। और हम वहीं से ये कहानी शुरू करेंगे एंड दिस विल हाउ इट विल फ्लो। सो मैम, बिलीव मी, व्हेन आई वेंट टू दिस फर्स्ट किला, चुनार का किला, there, as you come up to the fort, there is a ramp which goes up. It is not a very a fort on a very high hill, it's on a cliff overlooking the Ganges. तो आप जैसे वहां रैंप पे पहुंचती हैं, on the left hand side there is actually a 400-year-old cemetery.
Okay.
जब बाबर ने हमला किया था, जब बाबर ने चुनार को कब्जा किया था, उस समय से वो सिमेट्री है। एंड बिकॉज द ब्रिटिश ऑल्सो हैड ऑक्यूपाइड दिस चुनार का किला, so both of them are buried side by side. You have Muslims also buried there, and you have Englishmen also buried there. So it was like something struck me ki this is what I had conceived, that I'll start my story from visiting a cemetery, and actually here is an ASI protected cemetery which is 400 years old. So it was like, God held my hand and he took me, and then I started researching and researching, visiting libraries. What the history that we know is what, as you said, we inherit from our schools and colleges and universities, what UGC tells us and NCRT tells us. Now, actual history is hidden somewhere else. It is in the old books and documents which are preserved in the libraries. So, ma'am, this just grew. And I, as a storyteller, I could not hold back. I could not say कि नहीं, अच्छा हम ये वाला पार्ट लिखेंगे, ये पार्ट हम नहीं लिखेंगे. And then when you get into it, uh, to make it even more clear, I feel that I am a reborn Mughal. हम किसी जन्म में मुगलों में थे, अब चाहे वहाँ मसालची हूँ. I could have been a masalchi in the kitchen. I could have been a psych rubbing the horses, but I was there. Because when I visit these places, there's a feeling of, I will not say deja vu or something like that, but yes, I know that there is something more within the walls than what I see as a tourist. और आगरा का किला तो मैंने इतना घूमा है कि अब वहाँ जितने गाइड्स हैं, वो खुद कहते हैं कि नहीं नहीं, आपको जरूरत नहीं है, आप खुद ही हम लोग से ज्यादा जानते हैं. सो इट्स बीन अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग जर्नी फॉर मी.
I agree with you on this, sir, because kitni baar whenever I've read the Mughal history, even if it's a fictional book, there is something that stirs my soul. It's not just reading the book. And like you, I also feel कि कुछ तो वो जन्म में पास में मैं वो हिस्ट्री में थी. So when I had to have my chitter chatter with you, I was literally counting minutes कि मैं कब बैठूंगी और ये chitter chatter शुरू करूंगी.
जी.
Because ऐसा लग रहा था कि कोई वो ही टाइम से मेरे साथ यहाँ बैठ के
जी.
उन टाइम के बारे में बात करने
जी.
वाले हैं.
जी. जी. And there is so much that we don't know of the Mughal history. We have just, like I said, we've just read what the books have told us in short paragraphs of one chapter of Akbar and one on Shah Jahan. But there is so much more to them. And history probably is somewhere there at the back of my mind and in my heart, because the other area which where I'm very interested is the Second World War. Now, I keep telling my wife and my children, they're both grown up now. One is a doctor, the other is working in MNC. I keep telling them that I want my past life regression done. कि हम जरूर निकलेगा कि हम मुगल थे. And you know what, ma'am, when Amitabh Bachchan sir launched my book in Mumbai, Daggers of Treason. So while everyone was talking about great things happening here and there, so I just said ki there were, of the six great Mughals, starting from Babur, Humayun, Akbar, Jahangir, Shah Jahan, and Aurangzeb. After that were the forgotten Mughals,
Correct.
17 of them. So in these six great Mughals, there were two grand Mughals. The grand Mughals were Akbar and Shah Jahan. Now, both of them have had this mole under their left eye, on their left cheek. And I also
So
have it
does our
here.
last Mughal have.
Yeah, yeah, I also have it here. So, that's, I keep reassuring myself that what I'm writing is the history that had happened and which I must bring out to readers now, which is why I've researched so deeply, ma'am.
Also, sir, Daggers of Treason, like you said, you had Amitabh Bachchan sir launching it and speaking about it, and then it won so many awards. So, when you were writing the volume two, the Jhelum Betrayal, was it difficult? Was there like a lot of pressure?
Yes, ma'am. The Jhelum betrayal took me about 8 years to finish. Daggers of Treason took me 2 years and 1 year of research. So that's 3 years of research and 2 years of writing. But the Jhelum betrayal has taken me 8 years. It was Daggers of Treason was published in 2016, and Jhelum betrayal has been published in 25. So that's 8 years. Uh,
Wow.
because when you have a string of four books, then the beginning and the end, the beginning and the end which you have, but these two books in between, they are the ones which should tie up all the threads.
Correct.
The story should make sense, that how do you reach from point A to D. So B and C become very important.
So, what was the most challenging part for you?
Challenging part was getting down to write it, because I love reading so much that I used to keep digging out books, going after stories, traveling. Smita and I, we have both traveled over all these old roads जिसको मुगल्स यूज करते थे, क्योंकि एक इनका, they had actually three parts to the empire. One part was the upper northwest, which was Lahore was the place for them. The central main kingdom capital was Darul Hukumat, as we call it, was Agra, and down towards Deccan was your Burhanpur. So they were traveling from Lahore to Agra to Burhanpur, crisscrossing. So we traveled all these routes, and when I travel, like I said, I have this feeling. Then the Marathas were a big pain for the Mughals. Everybody knows it. Shivaji messed up their happiness properly. So when I was traveling these Maratha terrains, I could visualize that how would they. It's a very hilly and sparse terrain of Maharashtra. So I could actually imagine कि वो जब घोड़े से नीचे दौड़ते होंगे तो वो घोड़ा कैसे, and you have a big boulder there, boulders strewn everywhere. So how would the horse swerve? And if the horse is swerving, how would the rider swerve? And if he's swerving this side and he's gotten a sword in his hand, then how is he balancing? How is his? So if you read my book, ma'am, I hope you get the time to read it. You will find it very interactive.
I will definitely read both the volumes. That's for sure, sir.
Thank you.
I'm like looking
Thank you,
forward
sir.
to it.
Thank you.
And also, I want to ask you, did you map the entire series at the very beginning when you thought that, okay, this is what I want to write? Or did the story evolve while you were researching organically?
It evolved, ma'am. What I had in the beginning when I started writing and researching, I knew the beginning how I would start from the symmetry, and I knew the end where I would take it to. But with my reading and the research, uh, things came up, and what people may perceive as fiction in my books has some quarter of fact and history behind them. Like in the Jhelum betrayal, there's a very fine uh, uh, interaction between Noor Jahan and Anarkali. So it's not a figment of my imagination that I said कि हनुमान जी आए और उन्होंने अकबर को उठा करके वहां पहुंचा दिया, जो which people are doing now in
Correct.
they can write anything. But here, what I have written as fiction, what people perceive, has been written maybe 300 years back. There was this conjecture कि शायद ऐसा हुआ था. So it's very finely intertwined. And if I may just give you some, I'm jumping the gun, Shweta ma'am. but it's bursting out of me right now. So just to let you know कि how little we know of the Mughals. Everybody from India to the United States has been taught in history that there was the six great Mughals जो भी हमने आपको नाम बताए.
जी.
But actually there was a seventh Mughal emperor also in between, which nobody knows. Between Jahangir and Shah Jahan, there was this another emperor called Dawar Baksh.
Okay.
Now, how this happened was that when Jahangir died in Kashmir in 1627, that time Shah Jahan was a prisoner in Deccan. He had gone against his father. So Noor Jahan and Jahangir had him sequestered at बीजापुर निजाम शाही के पास. तो ये वहाँ कैदी थे. तो जहांगीर की डेथ हो गई एंड नूरजहां रश्ड विद द बॉडी फ्रॉम कश्मीर टू लाहौर. उसी बीच में शाहजहां को जब खबर मिली कि जहांगीर इज नो मोर, सो ही ऑल्सो स्टार्टेड फ्रॉम डेक्कन. माई थर्ड बुक एम्परर बाई डिसीट on this will carry that story forward. But during that period, Dawar Baksh was Khushro's son. He was at Lahore and he proclaimed himself the emperor. तो एम्परर की निशानी क्या होती थी मुगल्स में? दो होती थी. एक तो आपके नाम का कॉइन्स बनना चाहिए. यू शुड हैव कॉइन्स मिंटेड इन योर नेम. एंड द सेकंड वाज कि जो रॉयल मॉस्क होती थी वहां से खुतबा पढ़ा जाता था. जैसे नमाज होती है वैसे ही द रॉयल प्रोक्लेमिनेशन इज नोन एज खुतबा. So in this case, both things were done. Dawar Baksh minted coins also, and the khutbah was also read in his name. So for
Okay.
about 100 days, he was the emperor. But history never talks of him.
बट जैसे आपने ये बात कही, जब आप ये रिसर्च कर रहे थे, तो जब आपने दावत बख्श के बारे में पढ़ा, बिकॉज लाइक यू सेड एंड वी आल्सो नो कि हमेशा इट्स ओनली स्पोकन अबाउट द दीस सिक्स एम्परर्स, डिड दैट आर्क रियली सरप्राइज यू एज अ रिसर्चर, एज अ राइटर?
Yes, ma'am. Because nowhere ever has anybody ever even discussed Dawar Baksh as the emperor, seventh emperor, in between Jahangir and Shah Jahan. And it was not like 2 days के लिए वो थे फिर उनको कत्ल हो गया उनका. He was there for from October till February. October 1627 till February 1628 he was the emperor. But history has just brushed him away.
You know, like now in the Jhelum betrayal, you deal with Jahangir's reign, you Empress Noorjahan's mechanisms, and Shahjahan's rise. How much of the narrative was there in historical record, and how much did you invent in the spaces between? And I'm sure it's very challenging to merge both of them.
Uh, Most of the events which are mentioned there, ma'am, have actually happened.
Okay.
The I have recreated the scenes. I have put words there, but actually those things, like there's a very famous scenario in this the Jhelum betrayal where they start fighting. Noor Jahan and Jahangir, they start fighting. They get physical. They hit each other, and then the musicians who were there to serenade the royal couple, they start lamenting. They break the harmoniums and they break their tablas, and they start crying and beating their breasts in the Mughal fashion. So that actually did happen. And Jahangir had hit Noor Jahan, for which she got so annoyed that she stopped talking to him for 2 days. Now, Jahangir without Noor Jahan was a lost soul. Other people might get happy that, oh, two days of being away from your
Hmm.
wife, but this guy was totally lost. So इन्होंने उनसे माफी मांगी. और उनके वो माफी कैसे मांगी कि उनका जो शैडो था उसके उनका पैर उन्होंने रखा उस पे, तो दैट वाज हिज माफी, आस्किंग फॉरगिवनेस. So everything in the first volume, Daggers of Treason, when Abu Fazl, who was Akbar's ninth gem में से एक थे जिन्होंने Akbarnama or Aine Akbari likha tha, Abu Fazl. We all know him. So when Abu Fazl is getting ambushed and murdered, the names of the people I have used there, like Fidai Khan and all, Gadai Khan, Jabbar Khan Khalil, these were all real people. And what they said that time, when he was not a warrior, Abu Fazl was a writer. So
Correct.
they told him that, what work do you have here? Go away. This is not for you. You're not a soldier. But Abu Fazl said that I'm carrying the emperor's flag, the Mughal flag, and the emperor's strength sits in my sword. I will not run away. In fact, they took the bridle of the horse also and tried to push him away from the Bundelas, but he refused to. So those are actual enactments of things which have happened,
So, how do you view the Mughal world as a storyteller?
full of grandeur, full of love, full of lust, full of blood and violence. Everything is there in abundance. And they were there for about 336 years almost. So that's a long period of history which they have covered and which we should be aware of.
Like you said, it is filled with grandeur and so much more of drama, everything, dramatically, beautifully, architecturally. It is filled, these 336 years are filled with a lot of stuff. And when you're writing these historical elements, how do you balance presenting them as a dramatic story elements without veering into sensationalization?
Uh, there are there are pages where you might find my writing slightly bold for an Indian author, not even only for an Indian author, for an Western author also, because uh, if I have to describe something, like I said, I can't hold back. If it's a scene of war and battle, I get into the thick of it. So is it with if it is a love scene, I get into the the major aspects of it. I don't try to cloud up things. So for me, it's like being there, seeing what I can visualize, and then writing as it comes. I don't try to muddle things up or give them a cover. Some people have said that my writing is some scenes are very naked is the word. But I feel that if it was like that, if that kind of debauchery was there, then it has to be shown. I'm not
True.
biased. People also ask me that, या आपने हिंदू slant में लिखा है कि आप anti Hindu? हमने कहा, I'm not. I'm writing as a historian, a new age historian. So I'm just writing what history is there.
Among all the Mughal emperors, why does Khurram Shah Jahan command such a strong presence in your work?
Uh, I've come back after 425 years. No, but actually, he was his story, is जिसको हम लोग हिंदी में अर्श से फर्श तक कहते हैं. From being the grandest emperor at when his reign was there, ma'am, he was the richest emperor in the world, and the next six emperors of the world could also not measure up to him in wealth. So that was the kind of majesty he had. And then towards the end, he becomes a prisoner of his son, Aurangzeb, and he dies a lonely death in Agra. जो उनका सम्मान बुर्ज जिसको लोग कहते हैं शाही बुर्ज, that's a small octagonal place where he died. So his story is from rising from falling from the heavens to the earth. There's a lot of pathos, there's a lot of everything. He lost Mumtaz Mahal when she was only 32, 31, and 32 years old. But then there is so much story there for the next book.
Shah Jahan is remembered for the beauty, like Taj Mahal. Usually, especially if you ask the new generation who's not read much about Mughal history, they know Shah Jahan majorly for Taj Mahal and not the other stuff. but you write about the man behind the marble. So when you write, what do you see him as, a romantic, a tyrant, or a tragic figure?
I write with majesty. I write the majesty of the court, because the Mughals by themselves, they were nomads. They had come from across the mountains, Hindu Kush. They were basically nomads. ये तुर्की और चिंगेज खान और तैमूर द लेम के ये दोनों तरफ से वंशज थे ये. The finesse which came into their court, or the grandeur, royalty, and the protocols which came in, became because of the Persians.
Correct.
And Akbar was, he made this wise decision to invite a lot of Persians to his court, and also to make friends with the Rajputs here. So everybody knows that. So जो influence इनके ऊपर जो अच्छी चीजों का हुआ, that came from the Persian side.
If Shahjahan was alive, what would surprise him about how people view him today?
Oh, he would be in for a shock, because uh, he was used to riding elephants, and he had this whole army of buglers and drummers walking in front, and huge flags flying. His train used to be out a mile long. Abhi to will get caught in the Gurgaon traffic, and he'll feel really, really bad. And then, now you have to take an appointment to see a doctor. And if he's a good doctor, he'll tell you, come after 3 days. अभी खाली नहीं है. उनको आदत थी कि जब उनको जरा सा भी हिचकी भी आती थी, तो somebody used to catch his, hold his hand and hold his nerve and say, आलम पनाह, आप थोड़ा आराम फरमाएं. So he would be in a true shock. I wouldn't wish him to be here now.
A multi book saga
And
generally means.
and and sorry to
No,
cut
no,
it.
please.
He would have been de-begamized and demonetized.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so that leaves him where, yeah.
Yeah, so I think in school he's not around here to see and be shocked.
Yes.
So, yeah, back to the question. A multi book saga means characters that live beyond a single book. And obviously, these historian characters have been living till today and will live further. Who is the most misunderstood character across the series, according to you?
Most misunderstood would have been Jahangir, because he was made out. I also have made him out as an opium addict, and going after the good things in life. But before he got into opium and wine and shrugged his empire away to Noor Jahan, he was a brave fighter, a brave warrior, and he had a very scientific temper. If you read his Tuzuke Jahangiri, which is his own memoirs, he used to dissect everything. Like if he killed a deer or a reindeer, then he used to, like a surgeon does, or these medical students do. He used to cut up the reindeer or the deer, and then he used to see the interiors, what they had, what they had not had, not only for animals, even for botany. When he was visiting the valleys of Kashmir or any other place, he would uh, he would dissect flowers and petals and try to understand. He had a very scientific temper, but people have normally taken him as being cuckolded by Noor Jahan and not being a good soldier or an emperor.
Shanja's portrayal shifts significantly between volumes, maybe. But how did your understanding of him grow or change as you researched?
Shah Jahan was very ambitious right from the beginning, and fortunately, he was also the ablest of his sons. You had Khushro, the elder brother.
Hmm.
Then there was Parvez. Then there was Shah Jahan, and then there were two more, Jahandar and one more, Shahryar. So, of the five children that Jahangir had, he was the most efficient and the most warrior like. So, because the Mewar campaign, nobody could subdue Mewar, Chittor, as we know it. But Shah Jahan was the one who brought them down. So, and that is the time when even while Jahangir was alive, शाहजहां इनका नाम तो खुर्रम था, तो इनको
जी.
ये जो टाइटल मिला शाहजहां का, दैट वाज during his father's life only. Normally you do not get entitled as Shah Jahan if your father is the emperor. You cannot take on a regal title, but इनको शाह जहांगीर ने खुद ये टाइटल दिया. And he was the one who should have inherited, and he did inherit the empire.
I agree that he should have, and the grandeur that was there during his reign is just magical. Even today, when we look through pictures or the monuments that are there, the series that you're writing often demands both continuity and freshness. So, what ritual keeps you anchored amidst such narrative vastness?
I travel back and forth, ma'am, because if I restrict myself to court intrigue or to court scenarios, then how many times can you describe a long corridor or chandeliers or lights or the incense of rose? So I flit between uh, places. I flit between events. I have uh, I have original books with me which list out the Mughal gardens which were there, the old forts which were there. So if he was in Mandu, Mandu is in Madhya Pradesh towards the lower half of it. So if I was in Mandu, then Mandu ka किला is also very evocative fort. तो वहाँ की चीज़ों को फिर मैं लेता हूँ. अब ऐसा नहीं है कि शाहजहाँ थे औरंगाबाद में और हम उनको फर्जी में मांडू ले आए हैं, बिकॉज आई एम फॉलोइंग द हिस्टोरिकल टाइमलाइन very correctly.
So, do you keep a historical timeline and a creative timeline separate, or they'll end up merging?
They have to merge, man. Otherwise, it will be just fiction. There won't be any history in it. So
True.
I follow the historical timeline and I build my fiction around it.
And how does your research evolve from book to book?
There are some basic books which are the rockstone of my writing, and then when I read other books from libraries, which are the major library which has given me much, is the Khuda Baksh Oriental Library in Patna. So for any Mughal researcher, that is known as the Mecca for Mughal documents. So a lot of things I've picked up from there. A lot of books uh, they have been kind enough to allow me to write from them, to copy from them. Uh, so traveling these routes, uh, spending time in these forts, not as a tourist, but as someone who has passed through these corridors and rooms. So that is what gives me the flavor to write.
So, when do we expect the book three after how many years?
No, this one I'm already 60% through. Because the second leg in any, if you run a relay, the second and the third legs are the most important because they
Yes.
join the first and the anchor. So up to the storyline is very clear. Most of my research is also behind me, although I keep reading and I keep adding stories and anecdotes to the book as it evolves. So, ma'am, hopefully, by the middle of 26, Emperor by Deceit should be out.
Let's keep our fingers crossed and wish you
Yes,
luck for it.
I'm keeping my legs and fingers both crossed.
You have chosen the Mughal world as the structural backbone of your series. What do you think this era still tells us about the power, identity, and India's past?
It shows us 2 points, ma'am. The first was when Akbar integrated India, uh, he came with hordes of Uzbeks, जिसको आजकल हम लोग हिंदी में जो हम लोग कहते हैं ये उज्बक है. Uzbek means, somebody who's very coarse or something. They were from Uzbekistan. Then you had Turks coming in, you had Afghans, you had Armenians. So that was the influx from there, which with a very radically different culture and ethos. And then there was this huge landscape of India, multi territory, multi language, multi culture. But Akbar integrated it there. That shows us one part of the Mughal way. And the other part started a little with Shah Jahan. He was also into destroying temples, although it's not well recorded. But yes, Banaras was rocked by him. In one day, he had 72 temples destroyed in Banaras. And that was further destroyed and taken forward by Aurangzeb. So you have assimilation on one end of the Mughal story, and then you have destruction on the other end. The the thread which ties everything together is their ambition, power, greed, and this habit of killing each other. This betrayal
Yeah.
started first with it had not happened before Akbar. Akbar never rebelled against Humayun. Humayun never rebelled against Babur. But Jahangir rebelled against Akbar. Then his son Shah Jahan rebelled against Jahangir. Then Shah Jahan's son Aurangzeb rebelled against Shah Jahan. And then all the other 14 down the line, they rebelled and killed each other. So you had assimilation in the first part, and then you had destruction in the second part. This is how empires evolve and then they self destruct.
When you imagine your books, what emotion do you hope that the readers take away?
I hope this series becomes a cult on the Mughals, man, because there is so much of true history in it and interesting history. Not just wars and kingdoms and all, but the actual history is there. Something which will live on, like Gone with the Wind. It's probably 90 years past publication, but you still pick up that book and you still read it. So I would like this, The Curse of the Mughals, the series, to be a cult on the Mughals.
Is there a single episode or a line or emotion that kept you awake at night when you came across it?
It was that part in Daggers of Treason where Akbar has been poisoned by his own Salim Jahangir and his own physician Hakim Gilani and his wife Begum Sultana. So that those last 20 pages, when he knew that he had been poisoned, but he still takes it because he knew that Jahangir would do anything to get rid of him. And he was also touching 60, so it was time for him to pass on the baton. Knowing that he was being poisoned by his own, he still it's a lovely letter which he has written in the end, which is there in the book. So that's obviously my take, but this had happened. He was poisoned by his own.
You come from the lineal descendant of Rai Gurbakh Singh Ji. Did history feel like a responsibility on you growing up or a quiet companion that followed you everywhere?
That's a lovely way of putting it, ma'am. A quiet companion. A quiet companion. Because, as I said, ma'am, mentioned Chunar Fort to you earlier.
Ji.
Yeah. Chunar is very close to Banaras, 30 kilometers across the Ganges. And my great 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 grandfather, जो दीवान गुरबख्श सिंह जी हैं, ये उस समय महाराजा चेत सिंह के दीवान थे हम लोग. और उसी समय वॉरेन हेस्टिंग्स ने he had taken over the चुनार का किला. So my great 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 grandfather, दीवान गुरबख्श सिंह जी, he told महाराजा चेत सिंह कि आप तो हिंदुओं के राजा हैं. People look up to you as the descendant of Lord Shiva. So why don't, and this fellow Warren Hastings has come with a very small army, invalid battalion थी जो recuperation के लिए वहां भेजी गई थी. तो why don't we go and we bash them and we throw them out of चुनार का किला. सो महाराजा चेत सिंह थॉट की तो बहुत अच्छा आइडिया है कि वो छोटी सी फौज है, टुकड़ी है, हम लोग चल के उनको मारते पीटते हैं. तो दैट नाइट इटसेल्फ, all the bhangedis, you know what bhang is, ma'am?
The one that we have while Holi and all.
Yeah, yes, that the one that takes you into cuckoo land.
Yeah.
So, so, so jitne Banaras is famous for charas, ganja, bhang, and all that, you know. So जितने भंगेड़ी थे, जितने वहाँ के रेसलर्स थे, इनकी छोटी सी फौज थी करीब 1200 लोगों की. और जितने नागा साधु थे, जितने अघोरी साधु थे, all of them got together and they crossed the river, went to Chunar, bashed up Warren Hastings and his small that squad which was there. Warren Hastings had to jump into the river Ganges and take a boat and flee from there. But after 5 months, he came back and he thrashed the happiness out of Maharaja Chet Singh. हम लोग कायस्थ हैं, you know, Srivastas are castes. We are not the warrior sort. We don't like, you know, being cutting people up. तो my that great grandfather he decided कि it's better to leave क्योंकि महाराजा चेत सिंह को उन्होंने कैद कर लिया था एंड उनका सर कलम होने वाला था. He was to be executed. But because he was supposed to be काशी नरेश एंड शिव जी के अवतार तो उनको छोड़ दिया था. बट हम लोग भाग गए थे बनारस से. We went to बांदा. So it's a very quiet companion, ma'am, but it does nudge me all the time. And half of my madness, which you see, no, which you must have realized by now, that madness is because of all those years, you know.
When did you first realize your relationship with history was different from everyone else?
When I visited the first fort, Chunarka Killa, like I said, what I had perceived, I had thought of exactly the same way on my left side, it's still there. That symmetry is still there. It is an ASI protected site. And it was like, you know, like divinity had taken me to this story. जो हमने सोचा था वही हमको दिखा और फिर वहीं से फिर कहानी शुरू हो गई.
You're often referred to as the last Mughal. Do you feel more at home in the past than in the present?
Yes, I'm sort of antisocial also, unsocial. I cannot stand uncouth people. I dislike rudeness. I try to be very civil myself, and I dislike rudeness, and I cannot stand people who try to show more than what they are. So I just switch off, and I like to be uh, with my books, with past and all the nonsense that it carries.
And lastly, I will have a quick rapid fire before we close this chitter chatter for today.
Yes.
Sharjah in one word.
Grandeur,
History or memory?
history or
History or memory? What would you choose?
history,
Facts or feelings?
facts,
Crown or conscious?
crown,
Taj Mahal at dawn or Taj Mahal at dusk?
Taj Mahal at dusk.
If history could speak back to you, what question would you ask it?
Where have you disappeared?
Thank you so much for your time. And with that, we don't close a chapter. We leave this pages slightly open for the history to keep whispering because we are looking forward for the third and the fourth. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time
you
for the
so much,
chitter
Shweta ma'am.
chatter.
It was wonderful talking to you. It's been wonderful. You've been a very, very receptive and a very good host. Thank you so much. Very intelligent one also, I must say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much.